Hello, and welcome back to the Void Century podcast. Ed and Adam here today to bring you chapter 990 of One Piece entitled Army of One. Just of note, on the title page, we actually see that Lola and Chiffon have pulled Pound out of the water, and they're like, oh yeah, our mom said our dad was just a guy that always talked too much, but he would never give up. So apparently they're reunited at last. Pez and the rest of the fire tank pirates are all wigging out because they love family, apparently. So, Ed, if you want to do the honors and take it away.
Yeah, sure. So we start off with a really gorgeous panel of the skull of Onigashima and the just artistic waves, Japanese style waves. And then we see Sasaki and he's freed from his chains. It looks like Sasaki is really upset with Kyoshiro and he's talking with his underlings, and it seems like Sasaki saw Kyoshiro as his friend and is saying that the price of this betrayal will be steep. When they had that big battle that broke out, or sorry, when they had that big battle with Kaido, he actually broke the tree that was restraining Sasaki, so that kind of freed him up. Then we skip to the battle on top of the dome, and Kaido's in dragon form, and he just looks really, really cool, really badass. He's just kind of watching the people fight on both sides. And yeah, we see some numbers, we see some beast pirates, and we see a bunch of minks in Sulong form. And it looks like they're kind of taking out the beast pirate fodder with electric based attacks. Then we see Jack, and he's got a bunch of swords stuck in him, and he's got a bunch of blood, but he is still taking out a lot of the minks, and he's doing a lot of damage. So Kinemon is looking at Jack and he's bracing himself to take on Jack, except as he tries to draw his blades, Neko Mamushi and Inuarashi are both asking him to wait. This one's ours, Kinemon. And you see their silhouettes in the moonlight turning into Sulong form. And even Jack is looking concerned about this as Inu and Neko both dash and speed blitz Jack. Next we cut to the stage inside the dome, and it's King and Queen talking with each other. Queen even notices Hyogoro out there, and he realizes that Udon must have been compromised, and that's how the prisoners escaped. King says that he won't blame Queen because he's worthless, and that he could have probably stopped this all from the beginning if he was actually competent. And Queen is just ignoring all of this and just wondering why Babanuki would lie to him when he was saying that there was no problems at the jail cell. King then calls all of the Tobiropa through the Denden Mushi, and while they're calling, we see Hawkins and X-Drake talking to each other. Drake is saying right now is a great time to betray them. If you really want to betray them, let's do it now. And Hawkins is kind of ignoring him, and he's just 1%. He just says 1%. And then X-Drake is what does that mean? I don't get it. And Hawkins is that's the chances of a certain man surviving until tomorrow. And Drake is 1%? Sucks to be him. And then they get the call from King, and he's talking to all of them. He notifies them that the current battle in Onigashima, and that right now, because circumstances are so dire, they can't allow themselves to be fighting each other, and that capturing Yamato will no longer earn them a chance to challenge an all-star. Next we see Ulti and Page 1, and they're just Ulti is just basically annoying Page 1 as she does and asking for a piggyback ride. And they're doing this all over the Denden Mushi, and King is shut up, you little brats. And Ulti gets upset, and she's just who are you calling brats? So King informs them that Kaido is on the roof ascending the castle, and that they need to stop the enemies at all cost.
So at this moment, Drake and Hawkins are still talking and doing their thing, and we see Who's Who walk up, and he's like, hey Drake, now while everything's all chaotic, I'm gonna need you to come with me. There's, I gotta do something, but it's too much for me to do alone. And there's a certain somebody I want to kill. And then he's like, oh, we're going to Queen. And Drake's like, hey man, I don't want to get involved. This is your fight. Do you really want to attack Queen right now and lower our battle power while you guys are fighting with each other? And Hawkins is still sitting there doing his tarot card thing, just playing the cards, playing solitaire, if you will. We go to the performance floor and we see a couple of the numbers are fighting. We see the samurai are trying to fight the numbers and make way for the Straw Hats. We see that the Oniwa Banshu have mobilized and are now fighting the rebels. And Fukurokuju looks a little conflicted, but he's kind of solemn. So we see a panel of the rebel samurai attacking the ankles of a number, and the samurai fodder look like they're getting pretty beat up against this fight with a number. We see one of the numbers, actually the one with a big club, kind of rears back and he's about to strike one of the rebel samurai. And we see out of nowhere Zorojiro slices his kanombo or his club in half. And everybody's like, oh, Zorojiro, thank you for saving us. And Luffy's like, hey guys, don't push it. You know, we're still here to fight too. And Luffy jumps in the fight. And a piece of the club starts falling down to the rebel samurai. And they're about to get struck. And Jinbei just sits there and all casually with one arm, he's just holding this thing up. And then the Straw Hats kind of think to themselves, they're like, oh, well, if this number is supposed to be like oars, then, you know, this is nothing compared to what it used to be, because it took all of us to fight one of these guys before. And Luffy, in his cool panel in Gear 4, decides to stand up and take out a number on his own. And at this moment, Hyogoro looks at Luffy's Gear 4th form again, and he's like, oh, there it is again. That form reminds me just of a guardian deity. And he says this just as Luffy's about to attack two of the numbers. Luffy's about to strike, and then we get a panel of Drake looking all bloodied, and he's like, hey, what's the meaning of this? And we see that he's kind of hunched over, injured, in front of Queen, Hawkins, and Who's Who. And Queen's like, oh, I would like to know what's going on here. Back in the Flower Capital, you let Law go free. And Hawkins is like, yeah, it couldn't have been anybody else but you that let Law free. I just want to know why. So Hawkins and Who's Who and Queen are all sitting there, and they're like, oh, you're the guy we wanted to kill. And they start interrogating Drake, and they're like, who sent you? Is it just you? And Drake's like, oh, well, you're going to have to kill me. I'm not going to tell you guys anything. And Drake's like, oh, I can't talk my way out of this. This is serious. And Queen's like, oh, we'll get a word out of you. We'll torture you. And in this moment, Drake sets off an explosion and somehow escapes. And he goes to jump out of the side of a castle, or of the castle. And he's like, oh, I still have hope. And we see he's falling onto one of the numbers down below. And he strikes him at the exact same time Luffy strikes another number. So it's kind of a reflection of their power. So X Drake uses a named attack called Juki X Caliber, and Luffy, of course, uses his Kong gun, and everybody down below is like, whoa, these guys must be really strong to take this guy out by themselves. Drake's kind of looking all conflicted right now, and he has a flashback towards Kobe, where Kobe's really talking up Luffy, and he's like, oh yeah, you gotta trust me, Luffy's amazing, he's great. And the samurai are like, oh, Drake from the Flying Six, what is he doing here? Why would he attack a number? And in this moment, we get a panel of Drake saying, Straw Hat Luffy, for things I can't tell you about, I really, really want to fight alongside you right now, please let me. And Luffy's like, what? Who are you? And we get the most surprising thing of all. There is a break next week. And that's the end of the chapter.
Well, this one was kind of a straightforward chapter. Not too much to discuss. But there was a lot of cool things that happened. Just the ending was pretty hype with how Drake is like, I want to fight alongside of you, Luffy. So please accept me. That's pretty hype. But yeah, how'd you like the chapter?
I thought the chapter was really good. There weren't a lot of things like out in the open that would really shock us, like you said. But there was a lot of nuance if you kind of read into things. The first thing I really am curious about is I really want to know Sasaki's relationship with Denjiro. And one of the things I want to point out too, which kind of connects them, is so Denjiro or Kiyoshiro was the leader of the Yakuza under Orochi, correct? And one of the big motifs of the Yakuza is they have big tattoos. They have like really elaborate tattoos that are commonly associated with Japanese crime families. So when Denjiro or Kyoshiro came out to Sasaki, remember he took his kimono off and he showed him the back. So he showed him his tattoo he has on his back. If we look at Sasaki and we look at he has tattoos on both of his arms that flow into his chest, and then that really flowy kind of Yakuza style of tattoo. So maybe that was a subtle hint that they could have both been connected in some way.
That's a good catch. I think that that's very plausible. Like, obviously, Sasaki wasn't always on the Beast Pirate crew, but perhaps he used to. I mean, he was a fisherman, so perhaps he kind of bonded with Denjiro or Kyoshiro to him while, like, and got getting like the tattoos and kind of assimilating into that type of culture. So it would feel extra betrayal for sure if that person who kind of helped show you the ropes and stuff kind of was fighting for the other side, you know?
I agree with you, but if we think about it, so we know that the Flying Six, besides being, one of Kaido's top underlings, they still have jobs outside of just being a military force. For
Right.
instance, we know Black Maria has the pleasure hall, so maybe Sasaki was geared more towards underground dealings or maybe like extortion schemes, like something typical of like gang work of what gangsters would be doing.
Yeah, I think that's very plausible.
Sasaki almost looked sad when he was swigging his sake, and he's like, "Oh, the price for betraying me is going to be real high, Kyoshiro." I actually took him to be kind of like sad or like saying that begrudgingly, like they were actually somewhat good friends, and he's actually really upset that Kyoshiro would betray him like that.
Yeah, I get that impression too. I think that this basically confirms there's going to be a future fight between the two of them. Or at least a future encounter, but hopefully a fight.
I think so too. One of the things I really liked about the chapter is if you really read between the lines, you see that the way Oda's laying everything out is instead of everything being a big chaotic battle, he's slowly moving towards these little battles where everything's going to be more of a structured fight instead of all this chaos, so that we actually get what we're used to, where we know, the top three fighters of the Straw Hat crew usually fight, the top three of the opposing crew. And it's really moving towards that sense. But O's doing it real subtly right now. So it's real cool to watch.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of like seeing the puppet masters move his strings, you know. We're getting to witness that a little bit right here.
Yeah, it's cool. We're really just watching the mark of a master. But one of the things I would love to see, and upon my first read through, I thought this was going to happen, but now upon like reading the good translation it doesn't. But when Sasaki was like getting freed by his underlings and like dusting himself off, I was half expecting that Big Mom Boulder just to come by and just take them all out.
I mean, that'd be funny. Like, I feel like that's gonna happen at some point with someone. Probably not with Sasaki, but yeah, that would be funny.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty good. Go on.
Yeah, moving forward. So the next scene basically in the chapter is on top of the dome, and we have Kaido watching over the Minks going Sulong fighting his men. And I just gotta say, not only does Sulong look cool, but like I honestly didn't realize. I know that you've told me this in the past, like upon like reading this, but like I completely forgot that Minks go like do electric base attacks when they go Sulong.
Oh yeah, so minks have like electro natively, what they could use without Sulong, but I feel like the Sulong just amplifies their powers. And I even like theorized a long time ago before we even started the podcast that the reason why minks have like this electric based attack is because their fur conducts static electricity.
Yeah, that's actually like really plausible in the One Piece world.
I mean, I would think so too. But yeah, so Electro's like really powerful when they're not in Sulong, but it seems like it's that much more amplified when they are in Sulong, and minks are already really dangerous. So in Sulong, it's just gotta be like a whole nother breed. I took it when Kaido was like watching the fight, is he wants to see like real animals, like the fighting of real animals, i.e. the minks, they're natural born animals. I mean, that sounds
They're
terrible, but
beasts,
it's
yeah.
basically what they are versus his artificial devil fruits and like his gifters and his smile army. So I really took that as Kaido kind of like looking up over his army and seeing how they stack up to like the forces of natural born beasts.
Yeah, he's the leader of the Beast Pirates, so it's his fake beasts versus natural beasts, and seeing what's superior. I like that. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if, in the event, plot armor wasn't a thing and Kaido wins this battle and goes on. I believe he would try to subjugate the minks and to get them to work under him.
I could see that. Yeah. It seems like something he would like because he likes beasts, he likes devil fruits, and obviously they're strong enough to stand against his men. So
Oh yeah, the minks are totally, in terms of mink versus gifter, as is plainly shown by Oda. The minks are just messing up the gifters left and right. Like the gifters have nothing against Electro. The only one who really stands a chance right now is the numbers and Jack. And Jack's even looking worse for wear. And once Neko and Inu come out, Jack is done pretty much.
yeah, so talking about Jack, so first off, he's pretty bloodied up. Like he's got swords in him, like multiple swords, just various parts of his body, including like one in his trunk. He's in beast form, by the way. And yeah, like it doesn't seem like it's really stopping him. He's just kind of tanking all of this damage. Like he's got damage, but he's still honestly, he's probably still close to full power from if I were to guess.
Yeah, I would say so. If we think about his devil fruit form, an elephant's very resilient.
Yeah, so that brings the question of how badly will he lose to Neko and Inu when they are really enraged. They're in Sulong form and they basically want to avenge the destruction of Zoe.
Yeah, so I can honestly say that I feel that Jack is going to get rocked here. It's pretty much, I feel like, yeah, it's just going to be pretty cathartic just watching Neko and Inu open up a can of whoop ass on Jack. However, do we feel like Kinemon could have easily just cut Jack down if Neko and Inu didn't ask him to stay his hand?
I don't think so, personally. I think that it would be not easy. I think that they're probably evenly matched, if I were to guess. But
I mean, but Ashura Doji smacked Jack pretty hard like it was nothing. So
oh,
Kinemon stronger than Ashura Doji, in my opinion.
then yeah,
So
he
I
probably would
think,
have won. Yeah.
yeah, I think Kinemon could slap him easy.
Dang, I've been like really sleeping on some of these scabbards because like I feel like Denjiro has to be so strong too. I mean, we saw how jacked he was and he's been training for the 20 years that they time skipped and Kinemon is still probably on par with Denjiro, like even after those 20 years, which is ridiculous to me because he didn't get those extra 20 years of training. He just kind of was naturally stronger. He's probably naturally the strongest scabbard, right?
I mean, that leads to believe the way that crews are structured. So Kinemon was like Odin's number two. And, if we look at Zoro on the Straw Hats and we see how devastatingly strong Zoro is, and even like compared to Luffy, Zoro is very strong.
Why
So
why haven't we seen Kinemon fight like before we got to Wano? Like he never really fought, did he?
no, we've never really seen him have a serious fight. So I think what this is leading into is, so right now we're sitting here and we're studying all the powers of the scabbards and we're like, oh, these scabbards are so strong, like we're really sleeping on them. However, we're not thinking about how literally in the next chapter they're probably going to get stomped out by Kaido and a couple of them are probably going to die. So it just goes to show like the great divide in power between all these characters that we're like we know are strong, but how Kaido is really just another level above them.
Yeah, yeah. I hope that they don't get instantly like defeated, but I think that that is how the story's going to go because right now in terms of the Straw Hats, we have Luffy and Zoro trying to fight their way to the top of the dome to fight Kaido. And if the Scabbards defeat Kaido here, then Luffy and Zoro don't need to help them and fight Kaido. And that's just not how the story's going to play out, guys. I don't think the Scabbards are going to defeat him at all. I think that they're going to lose. I think that it's going to be low difficulty for Kaido. And then it's going to be Luffy versus Kaido. And again, no idea exactly how that will unfold as of yet, other than the fact that there's going to be a big tragedy at the end of Act 3, which still has not happened, guys.
Yeah, and I still don't even know if a 1v1 Luffy versus Kaido is even possible at this point. Like, okay, Luffy took out a number in Gear 4, but like Kaido's like that much, more destructive. Granted, we haven't seen Luffy use Ryo-O yet, but I don't know if Luffy can really fight him 1v1 right now.
I think that there's gonna be some 1v1. I'm not sure if it will completely be 1v1 for Luffy versus Kaido, but I do think that he's gonna do some 1v1 action against him because he did train that Ryo-Oh for a reason. So
Oh, I totally agree with you. Like Luffy can get the final hit in, but whether and there will be like they will fight each other one on one, but whether or not Luffy's gonna, strike the final blow or have like a fight with Kaido similar to Luffy v Katakuri, we just don't know yet.
oh yeah, it will not be like that at all. No way. I don't think it's gonna. Oda doesn't really reuse things like that. Like when he reuses old fights or something, he does it in a more poetic way than that. So yeah, I don't think that'll happen, but I'm really excited for it.
Oh, I understand, but basically what I'm stating is the way Oda structures his fights is a lot of times the big final fight, Luffy versus whatever, it's usually Luffy one versus one against somebody else, and Luffy strikes the final blow, and we have all that. But as the narrator stated, if it's one versus one, you always bet on Kaido. Kaido always wins.
That is true. That is true. But it's the dawn of a new age, man.
The dawn. All right, so let's move on to the next topic. I was really interested in the talk where Queen's like, "Oh, Babanuki, why would Babanuki betray me?" Like, dude, we haven't heard about Babanuki in like 30 chapters now, so it's got to be a little bit relevant. What I really think it is I think it's setting the structure for Queen or some of the Beast Pirates going after Tama and getting Tama reintroduced into the story, because we know Tama's Devil Fruit powers, especially against the Beast Pirates, is really like there's nothing better. For those of you who don't remember, Tama's the little dongo girl who can pop mochi off of her cheek, feed it to animals, and then can control animals. So if she can control animals, then that means that she can control the Beast Pirates, and that means that Kaido can control whatever animal he needs if he has Tama under his control.
Yeah, so she can basically give her what's it called again?
Dongo, Kibi Dongo.
She can give her Kibi Dango to a gifter and control them. And that's really powerful against Beast Pirates, and there's no way that or there's if the Beast Pirates know about her, they can't just let her sit around and be a thorn in their side, honestly. And the stronger the gifter, like the stronger she gets too. So yeah, that's just not good for the Beast Pirates. So yeah, I like that theory that they're gonna try to capture her and use her. I wonder how it would work against an actual devil fruit that was a Zoan animal. Like I wonder if it would actually work on a devil fruit user, or if it would only work on a gifter because they're kind of like fake copies of devil fruits.
I'm really interested in that too. I'm also really interested if so we've seen it work on animals and we've seen it work on gifters. Would it also work on minks?
Ooh, yeah, true. And it's very plausible. All of these are plausible. We've only seen it worked on a gifter, so we just don't know.
No, we've seen it work on animals too.
Oh, and animals,
the
yeah.
big
yeah.
baboon. But yeah, so her power is way OP, and the way that Devil Fruit Secession works, like the Beast Pirates being the Beast Pirates, there's no reason why they wouldn't just kill Tama and get her fruit to reincarnate.
You know what would be really cool is if Tama gained control of CP Aegis Zero because most of them are Zoan animal fruit users. That'd be hilarious.
That would be pretty good, but what if she was able to gain control of Hatori and then influence Rob Lucci?
Nice.
Hatori still strongest member of CP Aegis Zero, confirmed. So, Hawkins was doing his tarot card action. He was playing some Microsoft Solitaire all chapter. Who do you think he was checking the life percentage for?
So I think that the chapter wanted us to believe that he was alluding to Drake because right after that scene, Drake gets taken by Who's Who and gets beat up by Who's Who and Queen and possibly King. So yeah, I feel like that's what the chapter was alluding to. And honestly, I don't agree with that if it is what they were alluding to, because I just feel like Drake has more of a story to go with. I feel like it's just a red herring and kind of like the obvious choice just the way that that Oda wants us to believe. And also, he's allying himself with Luffy right now. I think that he's not necessarily in the worst of positions right now.
I agree with you. One of the interesting things that I thought when I was reading the dialogue is when Drake was talking to Hawkins, he's like, "Hey man, I know you didn't join this crew by choice. Like, I know that you were subjugated. So, hey, let's start a revolution." But so another curious thing, another question I have towards Hawkins' powers is, does he have to meet the people he's doing the readings for? So does he have to like know them? So he knows Drake, but we've also seen him do ratings for Luffy before. So he could be checking Luffy's life, but I don't think it's quite like that. I think that I think his percentage will change for their survivability based on Drake allying with Luffy. So I feel like at that point in time, it gives a certain reading, and then once something happens, the reading will say something different. I feel like that's why Hawkins, when he does his tarot cards, he's like constantly checking them.
What's also interesting about Hawkins is I don't really get the impression that he actually cares about the Beast Pirates. Like, it seems like, I don't know if you guys have seen that Rick and Morty episode, or if you've seen it, actually, Adam, but there's an episode that Morty has the ability to see how he dies, and depending on like what he's currently doing, it changes, and he sees like one possible ending and kind of follows his life to make sure that he gets to that possible ending. And I'm wondering if Hawkins might be in some sort of similar trap where he just is constantly checking the future to make sure that a certain ending happens. And again, we don't know enough about Hawkins to really decide whether or not he's a quote unquote good guy or a bad guy, like what his intentions are or anything. All we know is that he's an all-star, he's powerful, and he's currently working for Kaido.
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I think Hawkins is one of the supernovas that we've seen the most but know the least about. I feel like he's probably too invested in his cards, but then again, that's his shtick, and seeing the future is really powerful through those means. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I feel it's almost similar with Katakuri having the ability to see the future, but not having the ability to change it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's similar to that, but I feel like Hawkins can actually see at least like he can see when it changes though. Like maybe he himself isn't changing the future, but he can see what's changing it and like how the probabilities change as they're happening.
There were two more people I think he could be doing readings for. I think that he could be reading Kaido's life, but I feel like if Kaido's survivability was at 1%, he'd be acting a lot more different. Like he'd be a lot more scared or relieved. He wouldn't be as stoic as he is now. I think maybe he's possibly reading his own survivability.
That's interesting too. Going back to Kaido just for a little bit, I think that in terms of his own persona and how he's reacting, he seems to be the person who has the biggest poker face. Like he never is really too emotional in general, and so I personally don't read too much into that, but it still is a potential clue. It's just like I personally am like, I don't know. He's just always kind of got a poker face going. That being said, I think that it's probably unlikely for him to think that Kaido will die just because they know that he's like everyone pretty much thinks he's immortal, like that he can't die, like he fell off from Sky Island and didn't die. So yeah, the idea of it being Hawkins himself dying, that would be really interesting. And honestly, if that was the case, then he would have a big purpose in his life to let him lead himself to this point to die here or almost die here and do something to make sure that an event happens in the future. So I find that really interesting. What do you feel about that?
I don't necessarily know if Hawkins himself is suicidal. I think he's kind of just reading the room right now, and because everything's so chaotic, that's why he keeps checking, right? So I feel like he keeps checking the percentage of his survivability, and the moment it goes up is when he makes the decision. And I feel like maybe the moment that Drake allies with Luffy is the moment that the reading's going to change.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I just kind of am giving myself a little headcanon here because I think it would be fun to think of Hawkins as someone who actually has a more big, grand purpose than it's led on to believe. And he's not actually just acting in self-interest alone. He's actually there for a mission. Kind of like how we got X-Drake, where he's not just acting to become Pirate King. He's actually there spying for Sword, a branch of the Marine government. Like, he's not really a pirate. So in a similar type of reveal, it would be cool to have more things like that just because I like that kind of thing, and I feel like it would fit into the story if it was true.
I agree with you. I feel like so we have very similar headcanons. I feel like so eventually all the supernovas are going to be either allies or like subjects of Luffy. So Luffy being the Pirate King, whereas Roger became the Pirate King through like sheer force and being able to circumnavigate the Grand Line and the New World. I feel like Luffy is going to be Pirate King in part because he's going to like unite all these strong pirate crews under like his own banner and his own ideologies of freedom from, you know, all forms of oppression.
Absolutely.
Talking about the Straw Hats, the power scaling, I thought it was very, very awesome this chapter where Oda just lays it out for you. He's like, yo, this is the parallel. These numbers, they're just like oars. And remember, it took all the Straw Hats to beat up one of these ancient giants. And now look at him. Luffy can take one out himself. And it was also very interesting that Oda did the parallel with both X-Drake and Luffy taking out a number. So Oda's just basically being like, hey, it's in your face. Drake is this strong. All right, you guys can depend on him. So I thought that was super cool. I thought it was also really cool that Luffy's like, oh, straight out, things have changed. Things are different now. I'm going to beat the crap out of this guy. One hit, watch it.
Yeah, so the power scaling is really interesting because now it's like, well, which Straw Hats could really solo a number at this point? And if you think about it in that regard, it's like these Straw Hats are all stronger than Orange Jr. Like, that's pretty
It
cool.
is really cool, but in this chapter, basically, Oda showed you which Straw Hats could take a number. Zoro sliced the club in half. Jinbei effortlessly stopped it in one hand. Luffy punched him out. So it's basically saying, okay, so Luffy, Jinbei, and Zoro can low diff a number. And, you know, by proxy, we could say Sanji can do it too. Just because he didn't show it doesn't mean he can't. So Oda's really setting it up. You know, these are the strength of, you know, the monster quartet now. So this is what these guys can do.
Yeah, and I kind of want to go down the list of Straw Hats a little further and see how we think they would fare against a number. So I think Frankie is another one, as seen last chapter. He can damage Big Mom. So if he can do that, he can probably take on a number. And it looks like he's gearing up to fight at least one, if not more, but potentially not. Anyway, I think that Frankie would be able to mid or low diff a number as well.
I would agree with you. We saw he used the beam against the number last chapter and did a lot of damage. And
oh, true. I guess that's a low diff then. Like, maybe he has to like charge it up, you know? So like, I don't know. It's like, it's more difficult than Jinbei or Sanji, but definitely not too difficult.
I would say Frankie's fight would be situational because he can't possibly keep firing the cannon, or once you know about it, it's kind of hard to get hit by it, you know?
True, that's true. And then we also have Brooke and Robin, who I'd say like power-wise, Brooke is probably a little stronger than Robin, but I think that both of them would, especially Brooke, but I think both of them would be able to take out a number. Robin, obviously, she can make a giant version of herself and be the same size as a number and fight them and potentially win. I mean, she's got a bunch of tricks to like trip them up or restrain them or whatnot. So she's got that, and then Brook is just kind of strong, and he can like go into spirit form, and he's got his good sword fighting skills. So I think that both of them would overall be able to defeat a
I
number.
feel like Robin's power maybe it might be a little bit underestimated. I feel like her devil fruit power is like a hard counter to the numbers. Because if you remember back in Alabasta, she could like literally sprout her hands from like somebody's shoulders and just snap their neck. There's no reason why she can't do that to a number now.
That's true. I forgot about that.
So, and in terms of Brook, I'm quite leery of saying he could low diff a number, but he could definitely freeze one of them easy. Brook is at least against the number, he's kind of like a glass cannon, really high damage, but due to the physical strength of the numbers, if he gets attacked, he's pretty much bones and dust. Yo ho ho
Yeah,
ho.
and then I agree. And so that kind of leaves us with the quote unquote Wiki trio. We have Usopp, Chopper, and Nami. Out of those three, I think Nami could actually defeat a number with her climb attack stuff. I think that it would be a little difficult, but honestly, I could potentially see her low diffing with the right conditions, low diffing a number. Um, when it comes to Usopp and Chopper, like let's be real, Chopper's pretty strong. Like when he, especially if he goes into Monster Point or I don't know, maybe even Human Point, like he gets pretty big. I think that maybe with higher difficulty, he might be able to take on a number alone. What do you think?
Chopper, well, I think with Chopper, we haven't really seen Monster Point in too long, but I feel like Chopper maybe high diff a number. He could definitely win in the fight, but I feel like he would sustain some damage. Usopp, I feel like one-on-one close range combat, definitely not, but maybe if in a long distance scenario where he's like a thousand meters away and sniping a number, I feel like he could do it easy. Or maybe he has a pop green that's more situated to fighting a number. We just don't know. We know that Usopp kind of underestimates himself, and he still has some kind of techniques and attacks that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, so honestly, I could potentially see every member of the Straw Hat crew. Did we miss anyone, by the way?
I don't believe so, but it's very similar to before and after the time skip at Sabaody Archipelago, where it took the combined fight or combined might of the Straw Hats to take out one of the Pacifista, and then after the time skip, Luffy just one punches a Pacifista. It's the same thing.
Do you think that Usopp could low diff Don Creek now?
Yeah, easy.
Strongest pirate in East Blue.
Yeah, definitely. But well, we saw that Mihawk cut up Don Krieg's galleon, and then after the time skip, Zoro did the same feat at the Sabaody Archipelago. So Zoro could do it, at the beginning of the New World. I'm sure Usopp could do it too.
All right, cool. So let's move on to the next topic because the Straw Hats are strong, and everyone knows this now. Boundman looking like a guardian deity. So first off, we do know that like that pose is kind of like I don't remember. I remember reading up on it. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it has to do with like a guardian deity in Japanese mythology. Um, the pose that I'm talking about is the pose that Luffy typically does when he goes to Boundman Gear 4 mode. It's a similar pose to like what Jiraiya from Naruto makes as well. It's just a traditional Japanese pose from traditional folklore, folktales. Anyway, what do you think about what it means when they referenced Boundman or Luffy as the guardian deity?
So there's kind of a lot of parallels. We've seen something like this before with Enel going into his Raijin form, and he literally became a thunder god. I also find it very interesting that the people of Wano kind of worship Kaido as a god right now. So I think it's kind of setting Luffy up to be the guardian deity of Wano, at least in Wano's mythology after the borders are opened. Yeah, so we know that at least in Zoro's techniques, religion plays like a big importance in how he names his attacks and just his ideology on the world as well. I do find this whole section just setting Luffy up to be the guardian deity of Wano once Kaido is defeated.
Yeah, I can see that.
So it's also kind of how we speculate that the D and like the will of the D is like the dawn. So Luffy and the Straw Hats have been referred to as the crew or the man who will bring the dawn to this world. So I think Luffy as a guardian deity is freeing people from subjugation and bringing freedom innately with him wherever he goes.
Another thing that I kind of thought up of on my own is earlier in the chapter we saw Fukurokuju kind of looking indecisive about what was happening, and we know that he's named after one of the seven lucky gods in Japanese mythology. He's definitely still got a role to play moving forward in the story of One Piece. I'm wondering if maybe he sees Boundman, maybe he sees Luffy fight Kaido or someone else, and kind of has a change of heart, and both him, his samurai faction, and I forgot the other guy's name, it starts with an H, but the samurai and ninja factions both, oh no, sorry, the ninja, Fukurokuju has the ninjas, my bad, but both the ninja and samurai faction might just kind of have a change of heart and side with Luffy down the line, just because those two people are named after the seven lucky gods. I don't know. It's just kind of like a pet theory I have, but I still feel like Fukurokuju has a bigger part to play.
Oh, I agree with you. He was looking real indecisive. Like, he was attacking his countrymen for Kaido even though he doesn't want to, just to save his own skin. So I could totally see him betraying Kaido when the time is right. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
I mean, yeah, like they're all kind of based off of Japanese folklore, so it kind of they're sort of related just by being Japanese folklore. Not that the stories are related. But yeah, anyway, Boundman Guardian Deity, I like it. I hope that they build a statue, a giant statue of Luffy in Boundman form on Wano at the end of after Luffy leaves or something.
I hope so too. Maybe the statue will be guarding the graves of the scabbards. No, but I would definitely love to see a statue of Luffy.
Boundman versus like a giant Kaido dragon sculpture
Oh man,
would look
yeah,
so
just
sick.
take all my money already.
Wait, actually, can we just get those in like one of those like gotcha machines
Yeah,
so that you can
that's
win
a
one? Because FYI, guys, if you guys don't know this, Adam is actually like really good at those gotcha machines. And if you don't know, they're kind of like crane games, but like the Japanese version. And Adam, once in a while, he'll show me a video. He's playing this on his phone, and it connects him to a gotcha machine in Japan. And if you basically pull the toy, the figurine off of the platform, they'll ship it to you. And he's won a good amount of One Piece figurines from it. So I'm just saying, I hope that they make a figurine of Boundman Luffy versus Dragonform Kaido, just so that Adam can win one.
yeah. I'm not going ahead and advertising for them or anything, but I have about 8 or 9 One Piece figurines that I've won off crane games in Japan, so it's dope. But even then, if I can't seem to win it via crane game, I would definitely buy a Luffy versus Kaido figurine. Please make it happen, Shueisha. The only other thing that we really have that's like the elephant in the room is Drake's betrayal. So obviously Hawkins knew that Drake let Law go, right? Wasn't somebody beat the crap out of Hawkins, right? And that's how Law got freed in the first place?
I don't remember, actually, but someone had to have known and snitched on him, and I don't think it was Who's Who. I think that Hawkins makes sense, and Hawkins telling Queen, and then Queen giving the orders to Who's Who, saying, "Hey, actually, X-Drake is not our ally, and he's a snitch, and he's gonna betray us, and we need to stop him."
Yeah, I really like how Oda set it up that like, oh well, Who's Who needs X Drake because he's gonna go kill Queen, and then it's like, oh, the bamboozle. No, Who's Who actually wanted to kill Drake the whole time.
And it seems like, at least in the chapter, Hawkins says, "I figured it couldn't be anyone but you, but what is your purpose?" So he didn't actually witness it. He just kind of deduced it using his prediction skills, and he's also probably a smart guy.
Yeah, Hawkins with the big brain. I found it really interesting that Drake, in this really pivotal moment of high tension, he's about to die. He could think of anybody, and he thinks of Kobe talking about Luffy, a pirate, and Kobe's like, "Hey man, you should hang out with Luffy because he's a good guy. And then Drake's like, oh, well, I'm going to put my life on the line for this little piece of information I got. And I'm going to trust Straw Hat Luffy with my life to get me out of here.
Yeah, so you're the one who brought this up, but you're thinking that maybe Drake and Kobe might be related. And I don't know. I don't know for sure. Like I'm looking at their noses. They have, I guess, similar enough noses. I'm looking at their hair. They kind of have spiky blonde hair. Um, it's plausible. Like I could see them being cousins as well, potentially brothers. They're both in the Marines. Like why would Kobe want to even join the Marines? Maybe because he had a family member in it already and he looked up to him. So yeah, I think it's plausible that they're related. What about you?
It's basically just so we know nothing about Kobe's parents. We know nothing about Kobe's past. We know a little bit about X Drake's past, but really, besides being members of Sword, why would X Drake trust Kobe so much? Like we've never seen any relationship between them in the story previous to Wano, because Drake is literally putting his life on the line to entrust his life with to a pirate that he doesn't know from anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's curious. We don't see much of Kobe in general. Like we get little tidbits here and there, but in general, we don't like it's a joy to see him, but we don't see him enough. So we really have no idea what his relations are. Like really all we know about his history is that he used to work for Elvira, like on her crew.
Alvida,
So
Elvira's
or
a
Alvida.
vampire princess. I'm keeping that in. That was
True.
good.
Yeah, we got to keep that in there. Oh yeah. But yeah, he used to be working for Alvida, and he's like, I just wanted to be a Marine, not a pirate. So, yeah, like we don't really know that much about Kobe, and it's very, very possible that they are related.
I think that little flashback just lends credence more that Sword's probably going to show up in the next couple of chapters, and if not, I feel like they're definitely going to land on Wano sooner or later.
I do think that they're gonna show up. I mean, he did communicate with Sword already while on Wano, and already like kind of like an unprecedented thing of so many different pirate crews coming to Wano at the same time is happening, because we got the Straw Hats there, we got we got the Big Mom pirates at the border at least, and some of them are on the island, and we
The
got
Heart Pirates,
who else?
Kid Pirates,
Oh yeah, Heart Pirates. Yep, yep.
Marco's there. Yeah, a
Marco's
lot
there,
of the
a
big
few of the
players.
Whitebeard crew.
Yeah, X Drake's there,
So
Hawkins is there. Like, there's a lot of big names there.
this is the arc, Act 5, when it's over. By the time Act 5 is over, Wano's borders will be open. And what better way to start that off with already having so many different people from different parts of the world already on Wano? So yeah, I think that there's a very good chance that again, CP Aegis Zero is already there too, right? So I think that there's a good chance that Sword is coming.
Here's a good little piece of headcanon for you. So, would you say Drake is close to death?
No, I think that he just took out a number really easily, and I think that he's battered, he's beaten up, but he's probably at like 50% HP, something like that.
Okay, so if you have 50% HP, don't you think it would reflect on a Vivre card of you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, would it be safe to assume that members of the Marines have Vivre cards for each other?
Maybe for like Sword, yeah, I could see that for sure.
So, I don't
That's a
know.
good
If a
theory.
buddy of yours is getting beat up and you know about it, don't you think you'd mobilize towards helping him out?
Yeah, and I'm sure they know how to get to Wano, because X-Drake probably told them how to. So, yeah, like I think it's very, very plausible Sword comes. I think that, I mean, again, like we've already talked about it, but I still like the idea of them fighting Cypher Poles, Aegis Zero. Who knows what'll happen though? There's a good chance that they won't, and they're just gonna fight against the Beast Pirates, which is still gonna help. There's so many Beast Pirates right now. The alliance on Onigashima is severely outnumbered, so any help they can get is gonna be welcome.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm really happy we decided to talk about Drake last week because who shows up in this chapter? Just a little pat on the back. But yeah, I'm totally happy he showed up. I'm still down for sword fighting CPI just 0. I'm just really waiting to see how it hypes up, and unfortunately, we have a break next week.
I know. That's like always my least favorite thing seeing is that we have a break. But we did have 2 chapters in a row, so we at least had that, and hopefully next time we'll have 2 chapters in a row as well.
Yeah, I just want things to get back to like a normal schedule again with Oda doing his thing. But it is what it is. I'm just happy that we're still receiving One Piece, and the story is just getting better and better every time I read it.
One nice thing about manga in general is even though we got like the pandemic going on right now, like they can still at least draw and fill in lines and write stories. Like I don't think they necessarily have to be people have to be around each other to make manga
Well, they
anymore.
have to be around their
So,
assistants.
yeah, that makes sense, yeah. But like, if you're in your quarantine circle, like it's okay. It's okay. Like small groups is okay. Um, but yeah, anyway, I think that we're kind of lucky that new manga is still coming out. Like there's other media like movies or TV shows that are not going to be coming out as easily because of the pandemic situation, whereas manga, like, it's not as many people needing to be around each other.
Yeah,
And so we're getting new content still, and it's great. I
the
love
only
it.
time in my life I've been thankful for being a weeb. Totally, I'm just stoked. I'm really hyped to see where the chapter and the rest of the story goes. I'm kind of just waiting and waiting and waiting for Act 3 just to end already.
Yeah, me too. I know we're getting some action, but we know this isn't the beef of the fight. Like we know that this is kind of just like the appetizer of the main course, which is Act 4. So, yeah, like we're ready. We've been ready for months, I
It's like
think.
every
We've been
time we
ready
see a
for
shamisen in the story, we're like, oh my god, Act 3, it's finally over, thank god. I mean, I'm not begging for it to end. I'm over just calling it already. That's how I feel.
All right, well, I think that should conclude it for this week.
Again, this has been Ed and Adam. Thank you for listening to the Void Century podcast. You can check us out on Instagram and on Twitter at Void Century PC. You can send us an email at thevoidcenturypodcast@gmail.com and follow us, or excuse me, and